Spoken there. I haven't thought about flying for a long time. I haven't dreamed of that moment when I was alone above the clouds for a long time. I haven't dreamed of waking up in a room surrounded in blue and green grass for more years than I could dream of remembering. I haven't walked back into the past or scratched on the doors of my origins, where it all came from, since I held up that cape for the last time.
Return to Cape Town 10th Year Anniversary Edition is a revised version of Andy N's first poetry book. The book can be purchased from Amazon and it contains numerous additional material.
Spoken Label. Hi, it's Andy N from Spoken Label. Thank you today for streaming or downloading another episode of Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up on beginning of 2016 and as of speaking has currently nearly 300 sessions. The full archive is available on Spoken Label bandcamp.com. Although it is available for free for stream and download if you wish, I am always grateful for any sort of kind of donation to enable me to keep the running costs of this podcast going. And enjoy. Take care. Bye bye. Spoken Label.
Hey guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house. I'm on Zoom again today. We're doing something I've never done before today, and that's unheard of me on Spoken Label. We're chatting to a gentleman over in the Czech Republic. And I've been chatting to this young gentleman for a couple of weeks now about his science fiction novels, and he's a fascinating writer. So his name is, he's going to probably completely correct me on this, Jan Kotouč. So, Jan.
Close enough, yeah.
Oh, that's not bad for me then, okay. Would you like to, first of all then, mate, introduce yourself to everybody? Obviously, we're told already from the Czech Republic. Tell people, obviously, where your writing originally came from, and we'll start from there.
Okay, so hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jan Kotouč. As Andy said, I'm a writer based in the Czech Republic. I've been publishing novels since 2009, but I wrote my first something when I was 14 in 2001. And to date, I have 17 novels out, and 3 of them in English, with the 4th one being translated. I have 3 different series. The first one is called the Hirano Sector that came out in the Czech Republic, but 1 novella is translated from that. Then I have an alternate history series about mighty Czech kingdom called the Czech Lands series, which is so far only in Czech. And then I have the one that's being translated into English, which is Central Imperium Series, which is like a space opera with a touch of military, with empires rising and falling, intrigues, and a hero who is a poker player. And right now I'm writing my very first standalone novel, some novel that's not going to have a sequel and that's not going to be part of any series. And apart from that, I've also written some short stories for various anthologies and magazines, and I've been teaching creative writing and for myself as well as for one Czech university, and doing all kinds of other things. Apart from other things, I'm also an English teacher. I have a certificate that I can teach people English in companies, but of course the last year, not many companies wanted to do that during the quarantine and lockdown and everything. So I had more time to write.
Yeah, I found it really interesting you told me before. So obviously, like, if people go and look on the English version of your website, they only see the 3 novels. And I found out when I was looking around, I thought you've done more, you had more that not been translated yet. So like I said, have you found then, obviously, you've been writing, I would say full time and for quite some time, haven't you? So how has your approach to your writing changed over time then, as a novelist?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one thing that every writer, as the more they write, the faster they become, and hopefully improved as well. I try to have some daily quota, which also helps that I no longer now have a job from 8 to 4 or something like that.
Oh, makes it easier.
Yeah. Also, I worry less about tiny bit details because I know that I can always fix it when I do the final edit and fix it later, but the first draft is about something else, so I worry about these things less. And actually, right now, I'm also, apart from writing a new novel, I'm tasked by one of my Czech publishers to prepare my first 4 books to a new edition, like to publish it in a new way with new covers and everything. So I'm reading something I've written 12 years ago, and so the main changes I'm doing is I'm like cutting out every second signal phrase because I've been overusing them, and I'm cutting out every second adverb because every book can be made better if you just cut randomly every second adverb.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, obviously, then I want to ask you then before we go into, we'll talk about one of your series that's been transferred to English in Pacific in a moment or two. But I want to know first of all, then, what made you want to start writing science fiction as a genre?
Okay. Well, I think that every writer, more than anything, wants to write something they themselves would like to read if it were written by someone else. And I've always liked science fiction. I grew up with Star Trek and Star Wars, and my favorite books are science fiction. I really like David Weber's books and Timothy Zahn's books. Later, I discovered Lois McMaster Bujold, and then regretted that I haven't discovered her earlier because she's brilliant. So I just like to read science fiction, and I like military history and political history. So I combine that with like writing science fiction with lots of intrigue and empires rising and falling and all that stuff. So I think it just never occurred to me to not write science fiction when I was starting. I also went to alternate history later on, which is a sub-genre of science fiction, and I may write on different genres as well down the road, but so far I'm like happy where I am.
Yeah, you were telling me obviously like you first did your first attempt in it, like what was it, a novel when you were about 14, didn't you really? So
it was not a novel, it was a fan fiction.
Oh, fan fiction.
When I was writing a Star Wars fan fiction,
Yay.
Super bad, and I sent it to one fan fiction website in Czech Republic where they actually did selection, so they did not let anything being published there. But for some reason that escaped me for many years, they published that one, and it was super bad. But I learned years later why they did that, and because it was at a time where Star Wars, the Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was a brand new movie, was the hot new thing, and there were lots of new fan fiction writers, and it was true in Czech Republic, but I think worldwide as well. Most of these stories were written by women, and many of them had like romance subplot that there's this female character based on the writer, and she falls in love with Qui-Gon Jinn or with Obi-Wan or with Darth Maul. And there are all kinds of stories like that on the website. And my story, while it was completely bad, was just with a group of Jedi Knights going to kick some bad guys. So it was different. It was bad, but it was different. And to my continuous embarrassment, it's still online.
Oh, yeah, I can believe it. You please put it down to one of those things, as I would say there, definitely. So, okay. Now, I could always ask you lots of questions about your books that haven't been translated into English yet, but unfortunately, I'll have to stick on to the ones that I know what I can talk to you about. Is in your books have been translated English to Central Imperium Series.
Imperium.
Okay, I say, but no, that's dyslexic for you. And obviously, okay. I know you've had 3 books translated into English, and the 4th one's on the way. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I've read the first 2. Certainly, I loved them. I thought they were brilliant. With me having the painters and decorators in on and off all week, I've not had a chance to go on to the 3rd book yet, but I will. So, obviously, then, tell us about then the basis where this idea of this series came from.
Well, I finished my previous sci-fi series, and I was writing lots of this alternate history, but I wanted to go back into space and take a different approach. So this is like my take on, as I said, like some story about some big galactic polity called the Central Imperium, which is super fragile, and I wanted main character who would not be some great, giant, wonderful starship captain, but let him be an intelligence officer and a poker player who enjoys analyzing people, which helps you both with being an intelligence officer and also a poker player. And I just also wanted to take the popular trope or cliche with ancient evil returning and sort of turning it upside down. So it's some known old enemy we did not even know we had and returning. And I wanted to explore the Central Imperium, which has been built on like million little compromises, and it's very fragile by that point. And I don't want to spoil anything, but my main character is a member of the royal family, but he's like 9th or 10th in the line of succession. So he's just happy being like an intelligence specialist. I think he's right about as far from the line of succession as I know Princess Anne is in the British monarchy right now.
Distant monarchy, yeah. So that's why it gives him that sort of edge, really, where certainly he can feel like he just wants to carry on with his life without thinking he's never really going to come. He's never really under threat of becoming emperor, like I said. But people obviously notice that may change as the book goes along. Now, I've got to tell you, I loved him as a character, but my standout character from the first book was actually his robot, Kelvin. I loved Kelvin. I thought Kelvin really added something to it, actually, he did, in the first chapter. And obviously then when he comes into the book later on. Now, how was it? Was it always planned for Kelvin to be like a bodyguard robot, or did that, as a character, did that come along later?
Yeah, it was always in the plan. I think what's become a little overused in sci-fi lately is the idea of rise of the machines or just AI rebellion, and I wanted to establish a world where nothing like this would happen. So my robots are more or less like droids are in the Star Wars universe. They are just these servants. If we want, we can we can say slaves. And I'm not sure if they discuss that in the first 2 books, but they definitely discuss it in the series at some point. Is why don't they rebel? And the reason that the robots themselves say is, why would we? And,
that's an interesting point.
I think that the idea for my take on it is this, that, okay, when we are thinking about these catastrophic scenarios like rise of the machines, we are thinking too much like humans. And because we humans, evolution like indoctrinated us to think in the terms of us against them, like for our tribe to be successful, the other tribe needs to be defeated. And any artificial intelligence does not have this baggage, this evolutionary baggage for that. So, and they're actually doing what they want, and it's even established in the series that some robots or some AIs, if you would, they can decide, oh, you know what, I don't want to be your servant. I want to go somewhere and read Das Kapital or something like that because I want to, and I want to be free. And all the companies producing robots, they actually cover this in the insurance. So there are like these cities where robots go when they sort of decide they want freedom, and they're just living it with themselves and are happy. And the company will just send you money or give you a refund or send you a new robot if that happens. But they consider it a glitch. But still, the robots have no reason to just want to destroy the humanity or anything, because why would they? So
it's quite an interesting approach, that, really, because what you've done there, because I think it's been used, obviously, I can think of straight away I, Robot by Asimov, where they're looking at, well, they rebel, and it's like, it seems that's what I liked about it, was it, the robot actually seemed to actually genuinely care for Daniel, and I liked that relationship in it with them, between the pair of them. It showed a different layer to him. Now, I want to ask you, obviously, about the world building aspect of this. So obviously, like you said, it's when obviously you started developing this series, did you have all the universe and or everything pretty well mapped out? Did you, and how did it change over time?
Yeah, I am a plotter and I am a world builder. So before anything else, I started developing the world, and I remember I was writing other novels, and when I did not feel like writing the current work in progress, I just went down and created this Central Imperium world. And so I like to play with this world building and create these worlds, and because I like naval history, then I also needs to name all my little ships. So all the ships that appear in the books, I named them long time ago. But of course, there were changes as I was writing it, but usually minor changes or more like something I just figure out later that I would need to think of something in more detail. So I just filled in the blanks, but I did not change something huge. Actually, the first novel has appendices which have some like information about the Central Imperium and about some alien species and the situation there. And I actually, I'm not sure if all of it, but most of it I just copied and pasted from my notes, which was my world building notes, which I had for like 2 years before I started writing the first book.
Wow. Well, now have you found that obviously I know you write other series, and I've not read much on you about your other series. I don't know a lot about it, but did you find then over these different sort of series, did you the way you plot vary from series to series, or even book to book even?
Yeah, well, maybe I'm not sure if readers would spot the difference, and of course, since only this one series was published in English, I cannot tell. But my first series was maybe more military in space, not only, but I think it was more military than the Central Imperium. The Central Imperium has military aspects, but it's also like action adventure and espionage, and it's more focused on the adventure, I would say. But maybe it's just in my head as the author, and the readers might disagree. But the biggest difference is when I'm writing the alternate history, because I look at that as a historical novel about a history that never happened. So I have much more minor characters everywhere, and I do lots of like small battles for which I have to create the new characters, because it's important to describe them in the alternate history books, and it's no plausible way to put the main hero everywhere. So I have more, let's say, viewpoint characters. For example, similar to maybe when you read David Weber novels, or when you read Tom Clancy novels, the techno thriller novels. Like if you read something like Red Storm Rising by Tom Clancy, you have a zillion of small viewpoint characters that appear on 2 pages. And so but the alternate history also needs to be more serious and more like grounded in reality, because it's like alternate 1940s. So we imagine what we think happened in 1940s. So it needs to be more grounded in that, let's say, technology level. And in sci-fi, I can just do crazier stuff like Robot with the voice of Christopher Lee, or
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that little bit. Yeah.
Or like the Scottish regiment, which is playing Scotland the Brave as they are doing the drop from orbit. It's like I can do that, because in sci-fi, when I'm writing, it's like, why not?
Have the freedom, definitely so. Now, obviously, I'm not going to ask you how many books are actually going to be in this series. Obviously, I know the 4th one is on the way, but have you found I'm guessing when you're plotting, you would have had a big overview of the full series before you really started, probably, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
And has you found that how's your outlines or plots actually changed much since you first did this?
The first 2 books were basically written as I figured them out. I remember I was talking about them with some friends, like basically telling them the whole outline of the first 2 books, and there were very little changes. And there was one small change where in the second book, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's say there's just some super minor villain character which was supposed to be just try to kill the main hero and be killed, and it was supposed to be it. And as I was writing that confrontation, I figured out there's no reason at that point, as I resolved the fight, there's no reason for the heroes to kill that villain, so they captured her. And I said, okay, so I have this important prisoner, so I now need to figure out what to do with her for the rest of book 2, and then in book 3, and so on.
Brilliant.
With books 3 and 4, I had to sort of like fill in the blanks more. And actually, the plotting of the series, you said you didn't want to ask me, but I always said from the beginning that this is the main series is 4 books, and when I will stay in that series, in that universe, but I may do a sequel series, and I also want to do like sort of prequel series with slightly different characters, etc. But if someone finishes book 4 and feels like, yeah, they don't want to do anything more from me, they can, which is maybe not a great marketing for me to say that, but I trust that the readers would enjoy it more to want the next one anyway.
Yeah, of course. I get it clear. I didn't want to directly ask you how many books you did have planned for this initial series. I thought that's fine with me. So now, obviously, like I said before, I know there's a couple of topics I want to touch on here, but so I want to ask you about this first of all. Then, so I know at the moment, obviously, the 4th one's underway, and you've got a standalone novel on the go as well, haven't you? At the moment,
yeah, that's actually. I had some personal issues, and I was unable to write for the past 3 months. And a few weeks ago, I started writing this novel, which played with an idea that I've been having in my head for like 10 years. And,
wow.
And so it's completely standalone novel. So far there's no plan to publish it in English, but we will see. We can. But it takes place in the Czech Republic, and it's a science fiction from contemporary Czech Republic, which has which basically the premise is that an alien bureaucrat arrives to Earth, which was scheduled to be colonized by some client species millions of years ago. And they realize that there's a vermin who spread out on Earth, which is humans. And so the interstellar bureaucrat needs to eliminate humanity, but he also needs to do it in the cheapest way possible. So it's like a planetary annihilation on a budget, because he needs to worry about his superiors complaining that he's spending too many resources. And so it's very slow annihilation, and then so the people from Earth can actually fight back. And one guy in Czech Republic, by accident, by being in the wrong place at the wrong time, gets some sort of alien technology implanted into his body. So he's actually one person that can stop that. And he's just a random dude who works in a warehouse in a small town. And suddenly he has like a military escorting him everywhere and activating alien artifacts to help fight with these aliens. And so it's like I just went to town in this book. Yeah. I want to have fun, and you
sound like you've had fun with it straight away. Yeah,
I visit my favorite places, and not only in Czech Republic, they also will visit Slovakia later on, and it's like I was thinking about the classical RPGs, for example, in like computer games where the main character needs to go to 4 different places and finds, I don't know, piece of some map or whatever. And I said, well, let's do it here in contemporary Czech Republic, where you need to go to 4 weird places and just do something. And of course because the alien is like always trying to be as cheap as possible. So first he 3D prints some alien warrior to fight the main hero. When the warrior is defeated, he 3D prints 10 of them. So it's actually leveling up in a plausible way. And I also have intermezzos which show like what's happening elsewhere in the world and how other people are trying to fight it. And
fantastic. Now, there's a couple of topics I want to touch on today before we conclude, okay? And both of these could go on for a while, potentially, anyway. Now, I want to ask you about the translation process, because we did talk about this briefly before for your 3 English novels. Mm-hmm. So, do you want to tell us about how that translation process went? Yeah. And obviously, I know it's been done by the same person. So I want to explore as well how it has changed over time. But tell us about the process first of all.
Yeah, well, first off, one of the most common question I'm being asked in relation with the translation is why I don't translate it myself and just have a native speaker proofread it for me, because my English is rather good. And so why don't I do it myself? And I was actually thinking about it for a long time, but in the end I realized, okay, the one thing I enjoy doing most is writing. And if I spend 6 months translating the book, it's 6 months I'm not writing. And I'm cranky when I'm not writing. So I decided do an investment and invest in the in translation. And there are not many Czech writers who publish their novels in English, even in the past 150 years. I think when I was trying to count them, I think more people flew to the moon. So, so I went to the process I started with was and one more thing, I wanted to find a freelancer, because there are translation agencies, but A, they are rather expensive, and B, they usually don't let you talk directly with the translator for obvious reasons, because they're afraid that you would go around them and hire the translator directly.
Yeah, of course.
and sometimes you have no control over it, so they sometimes even do things like they can hire 5 people to translate the book faster, and that can be crazy. Like, you translate this fifth, you translate that fifth. And
I must admit to you, I do a book review podcast with my partner, and we've seen books like that before that have been translated by 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's done badly, it shows.
Yeah, especially with science fiction, when you need to translate lots of complicated terminology. But anyway, there is a Facebook group called Checklist, spelled with CZ at the beginning, so it's a pun. And it's with people who are often English native speakers who are versed in Czech, and they're looking for jobs and with translation and everything, or gigs, and they're asking questions like how to translate this, how to translate that. And I came there, and I had absolutely no idea what to do there, like if it would work or not. And I basically said something like, "Hello, my name is Jan Kotouč. I'm a Czech writer of science fiction. I'm looking for someone to translate my book into English. I don't want to go to the translation agency, but if you are interested, I'm sure we will find with some mutually profitable agreement." And within 2 hours, I had 5 offers. And so I did something I never imagined myself doing. I started interviewing people. And
wow.
Okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And of course, I let them translate a sample. And during this process, the one who stand out was my current translator, Isabel Stainsby. And because what really impressed me was that she was really curious, and she was thinking about terminology. She invented new words just in the sample to sound better in English, and because science fiction is about inventing new words often, and also asked me, and was not shy of asking me about things she did not know, and which some of the other translators, they just did how they thought it was, and it was terrible. But so we established a wonderful working relationship, and later on I also did a crowdfunding campaign to help finance the translation of my books, and it was very successful, which helped as well. But our process works that she translates usually 3 chapters into English and then sends them to me. And because I can speak English and read English, I read them and make my notes. And then she comments to my comments, and I comment to her comments, and we send it back and forth several times. But as we like to joke, as the author of the book, I have the last say, but my last say usually is, "Okay, have it your way." And so, yeah, because Isabel is just wonderful, and she knows lots of things, and she can find out what she does not know. And one agreement we have is in regards to military terminology, even in English, she takes my word for it. And so, especially because of course, Czech Republic doesn't have a navy, surprise, surprise, but in the novels they have space navy, and they use naval ranks and naval terminology. And even when I write it in Czech, I sort of need to figure out, okay, this is this in English, or this is that in English. So I wrote her a vocabulary saying, when I say Commander Poručík in English, it's Lieutenant Commander, or something like that. So and also because the main hero is the poker player, we also discuss poker terminology because I know more about poker, and we did that. And yeah, and so we are set. She sends me the 3 chapter chunks back and forth, and then we compile the whole novel from that.
Brilliant. Have you found, and has the process speeded up between the pair of you? Obviously, because you've been working with each other for several years now, haven't you? So
yeah, I think as we work more together, I make less comments to her work. Or maybe if she were here, she would disagree, but I feel I have less comments to that. And yeah, but I think it's speeded up, and also I'm lagging behind because of other situations. I did not have time to read the chunks of the book 4, so I'm few chunks behind, few 3 chapter chunks behind. So I will get down to that soon as well.
Brilliant. Okay, now there's 2 things to conclude with today. Now, I want to talk to you about teaching as well, because I know obviously you've been telling me before I know you're an English teacher. You have been doing, certainly you will be returning to it, teaching creative writing as well. Now, tell us about the experience of that then, and do you think it influences you as a writer being able to teach it because you can analyze yourself more?
Yeah, I will answer the last question first. I think it's I remember when we had some civic class in high school, we said, like, when you learn most, and of course you learn the least by listening to lectures, you learn more by doing examples and everything, and you learn most by teaching others. So I learn and I think more about the craft the more I teach about it, the more I teach it. And also when some student makes a mistake and has some problems with their short story, I can tell what he or she did wrong, and I may not have thought about it before. And I think that's also universal advice for aspiring writers. Don't be afraid to read really bad prose, or if you don't want to just watch really bad movies, because if you read a really good book or watch a really good movie, you often don't know what is there that makes it work so well. But if you read or watch something really bad, you usually notice what is there it's such a big problem.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely with that. So definitely so.
And so yeah, and I think I always was enjoying making presentations at conventions and doing panels, etc. So I enjoyed, even though I'm an introvert, I enjoy like talking to an audience about writing and everything. And the more I thought about it, I decided at some point to try it myself, and I did some classes on my own, and then chance got me to this university, which is actually my alma mater, and I basically was substituting for a teacher who was sick for a month, so I was just teaching her class of academic English. But I suggested to my boss, like, hey, don't you want creative writing class? And of course, it's not in the main university curriculum, but they also have this general education thing. So first they asked me if I would like to teach a speculative literature class, which I did. And then they suggested, well, let's try to teach creative writing. And of course, there were not so many students in class because it's really not the focus of the university. So there were a small number of students, which tends to be good. But yeah, it was a good experience. And we are now in talks with some different universities about me teaching a class. So I will see about that. And I also like to read books about writing. And of course, what is a little sad is that when we discuss like literature about, or non-fiction literature about creative writing, everyone knows Stephen King's On Writing.
Yeah.
And while that book is good, it's also like the memoirs. The first half of the book is what Stephen King was drinking and what he was smoking when he was writing. And there's some good advice, but it's not, I think lots of it is not universally applicable. and which is nothing to say against Stephen King. Stephen King is a pantser, so if you are more systematic, more a plotter, you need to approach it in a different way. And since there are dozens of successful authors who are plotters and dozens of successful authors who are pantsers, there's no point discussing which is better. But I like, for example, creative writing books by Kevin J. Anderson about productivity and professionalism, which are really good. And I'm actually really looking forward to a new book that's going to be published in June by the Babylon 5 screenwriter J. Michael Straczynski, and it's called Becoming a Writer, Staying a Writer.
Brilliant.
Something I look forward to. And I think one problem I find, for example, in the indie market on Amazon is that there are tons of books about creative writing. And it's almost like if you published one book, your next book is book about creative writing. So I'm not saying they're bad. They can be great, but I usually, when I buy a creative writing book, I buy it from an author I know, an author I respect for their achievements, and I know them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one straight away. So if you want to read that sort of book, you want to do it by somebody who's a favourite of yours, and you feel like you've got that personal touch more, definitely. So brilliant. Yeah. It's been a fascinating chat today. Thank you for this, Jan. Okay, to conclude, we'll let you do the hard sell now, if you know what I mean. Do you want to tell people where they can find your books, first of all?
Okay. Well, you can find my books on Amazon. So far, I'm exclusive for Amazon in English, so you can go there and just type my name or type Central Imperium, and you will find me. You can also find me on Goodreads. I have a Facebook group I have a Facebook page where I post mostly in Czech, but I have a Facebook group where I can be found and where we speak English. It's called Galactic Empires, Intrigue, and Poker, and the Worlds of Jan Kotouč. So you can find that. And if you go to my website, which is jan-kotouč.cz, which stands for Czech Republic, CZ, there you can download a free standalone novella from one of my different series called Sector Hirano.
Yeah, I've seen that listed on your website as well, if people are interested in that as well.
You can download it for free on my website. So if you want to taste and you don't want to buy something you don't know about, then you can taste my novel on the internet for free.
Yes, well worth it, guys and girls. So obviously, Jan, to conclude, and obviously, last bit is if people want to go to your website, where's your website? Just so they know.
I just said, and we will probably provide with the link in the comments.
Oh yes, I'll put it in the comments. Yeah,
it's Jan-Kotouč, my surname, .cz.
Yeah, for the Czech Republic. Yeah, people interested, and there is English translation on that part as well. So people
the website is also in English. It has English mutation, and I think the server should automatically turn the English readers from English-speaking countries over to the English version of the website.
It does.
Based on the IP address.
It does, yes, indeed. Now, that's all my questions today, Jan. So I want to thank you again for it. It's been brilliant this time. I've really, really enjoyed this.
It's my pleasure to be here. It was wonderful.
Right, okay. That's been the case, guys and girls. Jan, hang around. I do need to speak to you off mic. But this is the end of another episode, guys and girls. So thanks again, Jan. As Don Callis says in Impact Wrestling, stay safe and stay over. And we'll see you all soon.
Spoken, mate.